So I didn't always look like this. This was me as a kid. And I think the only thing you learn from this is that if there's one thing that's constant in life, it's change. Now apparently people tell me I look like The Weeknd. But fast forward to when I was 18 years old, I wasn't this person that's standing in front of you. In fact, I was this really shy person that didn't want to talk to anyone in class and actually wanted to stay away from everyone. And by some chance, I stumbled into this organization that basically transformed me as an individual. I will simply not be the same person I used to be. What happened was that someone invited me to a seminar, and from there, I joined the local office of this organization called AIESEC. And this was in Mumbai. And from there, I actually ended up starting a local office inside of AIESEC in India. From there, I became part of the national office of AIESEC in India. From there, I moved to AIESEC in the United States. I lived in New York for 2 years and eventually led the organization in the United States as well. And then from there, I moved to AIESEC International, which is basically the global office of this organization. You know, I thought I was joining AIESEC for 1 year. I ended up staying for 8. And during the course of this time, I've basically got the chance to visit about 40 different countries and be part of 7 different teams and facilitate basically hundreds of different conferences and speak at events that I never thought I'd be able to speak at, including the United Nations. And a lot of people ask me the same question. Why did you stay? Well, one of the things that happened to me as I joined this organization was that I actually got rejected at my first AIESEC interview. Little did they know, at this point of time, I'd be standing here in front of you around a round carpet and speaking a little bit about my experience leading that organization. So why did I stay for that long? Well, because only a fool would go 98% of the way and think the last 2% is useless. Because in 20 years, you will regret the things that you didn't do more than the things that you actually did. And well, because we're here to put a dent in the universe, otherwise why would we be here? But mainly because I want to be a billionaire. I want to be a billionaire in the new concept, which is to be able to impact 1 billion lives positively. And I wanted to start with AIESEC. And so I had this opportunity after 7 years to go for the 8th. And this was to run for global president of AIESEC International. Now, what does it mean to be global president? Basically, what you have to do is lead, manage, and represent the organization in 122 countries and territories with over 50,000 members and ensure that we're delivering more than 40,000 leadership experiences to young people on a daily basis. All of this at the age of 25 is a little too much responsibility. But it was a year that transformed me even further. A year full of challenges, a year that pushed me to my limits, a year where I truly realized what kind of leader I am and who I'm becoming in the process. But the best part of being president of AIESEC International is the fact that you get to work with these guys. You get to work with a diverse team from all around the world. And so let me introduce you to my team. So this is AIESEC International 16-17, and they're between the ages of 21 and 31. And while you're looking at the screen, you realize, well, they all don't come from one place, right? So over here you see a few Colombians, 1 Chinese, 2 Brazilians, 1 Romanian, a Canadian, someone from Ukraine, someone from Australia, 2 Egyptians, 2 Germans, 1 Mexican, and 1 Spanish, and me, 1 Indian. Right? So diversity is great till you have to lead it. Because when you're saying something in English, one culture thinks of it something different, and the other culture takes it differently. One person thinks you're too straightforward, the other person thinks you're not being straightforward enough. And so through this mix of different cultures, you need to figure out, how is it that I'm going to lead a diverse team like that? So cut to this person. I don't think you know her, but I actually just recently started to realize who she was. Her name is Linda Hill, and actually she's one of the best thinkers for leadership and management in our day. She's a professor at Harvard Business School, and basically has spent a majority of her life trying to understand what it's like to lead and where leadership for the future will come from, especially in emerging markets. She's the author of a few books, and here I'm going to talk about a little bit of an extract from her conversation with the senior editor of Harvard Business Review, Paul Helm. And she says that we know that the increasing diversity within business organizations and growing independence of players, from business partners to NGOs, within a business ecosystem, that leaders now need to adopt a more inclusive and collaborative style, right? It's also becoming clear that today's complex environment often demands a team approach to problem solving. This requires a leader who, among other things, is comfortable sharing power and generous in doing so, is able to see extraordinary potential in ordinary people, and can make decisions with the balance of idealism and pragmatism. There's a term to describe this leadership model. She says it's leadership from behind. And one of the most famous people that I know of, and she knows of, as a leader from behind was Nelson Mandela. And in his autobiography, he says, a leader is like a shepherd. He stays behind the flock, letting the most nimble go out ahead, whereupon the others follow, not realizing that along this whole way, they've been directed from behind. So she says, to me, this kind of shepherd image embodies the kind of leaders we increasingly need, someone who understands how to create a context of culture in which other people are willing and able to lead. The image of the shepherd behind his flock is an acknowledgement that leadership is a collective activity in which different people at different times, depending on their strengths or nimbleness, come forward to move the group in a direction it needs to go. She also says she should emphasize that leading from behind is not about letting go of responsibility. After all, the shepherd makes sure that the flock stays together. He uses his staff to nudge and prod the flock so that they don't go too far away and are staying on track when it comes to danger. Now, I didn't know Linda Hill when I was leading AIESEC International. I actually found out about her a couple of weeks ago. And if I knew her earlier, I would agree with every single thing that she says. So what I want to do today is actually share with you a little bit of my experience of what it was like to lead a team like this. Some of the things that I did really well, and some of the things I wish I did better. So we're at a time right now in the organization, this is 1 year ago, where we created a midterm ambition, a 5-year plan of where we're going to go as an organization. And it looked like this. It said, we want to become a youth leadership movement that's shaping what we do around what the world needs, that's growing disruptively, and is accessible to everyone, everywhere. So basically, we want to move from being an organization to be a movement. We want to disrupt the way we've been for the last 69 years and figure out a new way of how we will be. And that meant we needed to change the way we're looking at things. We needed to change the way we were looking at our organization. Instead of looking at from the global office, directing the national offices and telling them what they needed to do while they actually ended up working with their customers and our partners, we needed to change things upside down. We needed to start focusing on our partners and our customers, because in the end of the day, a movement is for them. They are the movement, not me, not my team. And we needed to see how we can work together to figure out how we get to this one vision or purpose that we have as an organization. And that also meant we needed to change the way, or I needed to change the way I led this movement now. And so I had to test everything that I had learned in my 7 years before being president in this 1 year with my team. And here are a few things that I think could be helpful. So the first one is to be selfless. And this generally goes against a lot of things that we see today when it comes to leadership. Leadership is not about you. It's not about your title. It is about ensuring that the organization comes first. That means you wake up every morning and say, I am going to do what's best for the organization and not what's best for me. And that takes a lot of humility. That means you need to let go of your ego. Leave it at the door. Because you are not here to be remembered. You are here to simply play your part in the big picture. That means you need to explore the whole landscape. Now, when you're working with an extremely diverse team and a huge organization like AIESEC, you realize that when you want to go really far, you need to look at all directions. You can't just look at what's happening in the front. You need to stand behind to see where your flock's going, what's happening with them, what's happening on the left, what's happening on the right. Are they slowing down? Do I need to keep the pace? And where is innovation coming from? Because it can come from anywhere. Now, before I was president, I was actually the vice president for product innovation for the organization. And so as I got elected, I automatically told myself, wow, I'm going to be the most innovative leader this organization has ever seen. But then I asked myself, would I rather be an innovative leader or lead an innovative team? And especially when you want to go really far, you'd rather have an innovative team. And so I did. I found the best people I could find all across these 122 countries and territories and found them in places that generally they wouldn't go. And found them from entities where would normally be looked upon or looked over in this case. And brought them to the office and said, you're the best I could find. Here's your chance to fail. Here's your chance to have the freedom to fail, but the courage to stand back up, to move forward in ways I can't imagine yet. But I know that together we will figure it out. And so I focused on basically the things that I could control, because generally I would always focus on trying to control everything. But I realized in today's day, you need to find the best people and get out of their way. And realize that not everything you've planned will happen the way you planned it. We need to lead families, not teams. You need to be able to create a space where people can be themselves. People can be crazy and awkward and weird and funny and just be them. Because only when they are about to be themselves, or you give them the environment to be themselves, you bring out the best in them. You bring out the best in people. And only then do you ensure that they're not afraid around you, or there is no fear when you walk into the room. But in fact, they are fearless around you. And they have the courage to take that fearless step. Because the team is temporary. Family is forever. And when you start leading a team from the perspective of family, you start loving them. You give them ownership. You have ownership on them, their experience, not just the task at hand, but how they are developing as a human being and where they'll go 5 to 20 to 30 years from here. You start leading from a place of love. Shut up and listen. Because today, people want to talk too much. Leaders want to talk too much. Everyone just wants to talk. But how about actually paying attention? How about actually listening? How about listening deeply? Because when you listen deeply, you cultivate empathy. And when you have empathy, you can connect with one another on a level that a social, general conversation wouldn't let you do. When you stop seeing yourself, you see everything else. And so when you actually start talking to your customer and move from just talking to them to listening to them, and then listening deeply, and then realizing what they are going through, you take a step back about what you are going through to understand what they're going through. And then from that perspective, you start creating solutions with them. You hear the pains of your sheep. You hear when they're happy. You understand when you want to amplify that. You understand how to reduce that. You see how to stand still and just listen. But when you're leading from behind, you also need to deal with all the shit that's left behind. Right? And I don't mean when you lead from behind, you let go of everything that's happening in the front. And it's okay, I'm here at the back, guys, you to figure it out what's going on over there. No, that's not what I'm talking about. You have to take responsibility. You have to stand up when things go wrong. You need to go in the front when you're not going in the right direction. When things didn't go as planned, you need to be there to say, okay, how do we solve this? How do we figure it out? Because we will. And boy, did I have to deal with a lot of it. It was hard. It was challenging. But really, challenges are what you come for. The purpose of life is to give you the chance to be the grandest version of the greatest vision ever you held about who you are. When challenges come, go straight to clarity and say, this is what I came for. Now rise to the occasion and know that you have every single resource with which you can make the right and perfect outcome. But also remember to flush. Because while you lead and go through these challenges, you need to remember to not let accomplishment get to your head and criticism get to your heart. And so, like I said, the only thing that's constant in life is change. In fact, the race today goes to the nimble, the agile, the swift, not to the large and slow. There is no return to normal. In fact, what is normal is more change and at a faster pace. And so in a day-to-day, or in a world right now, where future teams are going to look more like my team, we need leaders who can actually be selfless. Leaders that let their ego go. Leaders can see the whole landscape. Leaders that lead families. Leaders that shut up and listen. And leaders that take responsibility for what's going on. We need more leaders to lead from behind and explore what that's like. Especially right now, when leadership is all about the person talking on the stage. When leadership is all about what you're seeing on your screen. When leadership is 140 characters. Let's change that. Let's bring about a new way of leading. We need leaders who trust in themselves, but also realize that they trust in the collective wisdom of the room. Because it's not just about me, it's about what we can do together and what we can do to figure it out together. At a point right now, there are way too many problems the world faces. Great problems to solve. Populism, climate action, youth unemployment, the Sustainable Development Goals and how we're going to achieve those. Problems that I believe that can be solved through one fundamental solution: leadership. And we need leaders who stay up at night, not because of themselves, but because the vision of where this organization is going or their country is going is what keeps them up at night. And we need leaders who take that vision that keeps them up at night and makes it their own and take that vision personally. Because after all, it is personal. Thank you very much.